As there's a drive in a deep left field by Castellanos, it will be.
Oh man, it's 8 o'clock.
And so that'll make it a.
I don't need the spotlight. I shine just fine.
Hi, I'm Karma, and yes, I am a bitch.
Brav Bros. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Brav Bros, your favorite podcast from the bros for everybody. For whoever wants to listen, I'm your co-host, Steele Russell, joined as always by the one and only Shooter Magooter, and happy Birds Day, sir.
Happy Birds Day to you as well. This is just a great time to just hang out, talk a little Bravo, decompress. We've got a night game tonight. We got the Philly Marathon going on, so I broke out a beer. A little Peroni. Shout out Peroni.
No free ads, but shout out Peroni. Just crushing. I think my favorite part about marathons in big cities is that the people running them, it's one of the more difficult athletic things they're going to do in their life, 26.2 miles. But everybody else uses the marathon as an excuse to drink beer early in the morning. And I appreciate the dichotomy of very difficult athletic thing that they're doing. Everyone else is just boozing, and that's awesome.
It's one of those things that like you're walking around, you see a bunch of people drinking, having a good time. I wish, and I know my brother's going to listen to this and he runs, he needs to train for the marathon. I'm going to be selfish. You need to train for the marathon. I know you're listening right now. Next year or March, I think there's another one in March. Go ahead, get out there so that I have a reason to just post up with a cooler of beer, hang out, booze, make a nice little sign, maybe some confetti poppers. Just, get after it.
Yeah, do it for Shooter.
Yeah, come on, dude.
Think about other people when you're running marathons. That's what marathons are about, is giving your friends and family reasons to drink beer early on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Another reason to start drinking early today would be the Eagles play tonight. And you can't, that's the funniest part about late night Eagles games is the entire city of Philadelphia takes it as a challenge. Where it's like, you would think that it's like, all right, we'll just have a nice Sunday morning, maybe start around 3 or 4, get the tailgate. No. That means we got to start at 8 a.m. And can we get to halftime?
Most cases, no, but it's a good challenge. So I'll have to report back, let you know. I didn't start at 8 a.m. though. I just cracked this beer now.
That's your first one. Well, there's plenty of time to catch up. But
yeah,
we got a Birds game tonight, which we're very excited for. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk a little RHOSLC. We thought that we would take advantage of having a late window game and knock a little podcast out early, so you guys have some content Monday morning. And then we're probably going to knock out like 2 to. We're going to get a lot of episodes out early because people are traveling this week for Thanksgiving. You're not going to listen on Thanksgiving, although let me paint a picture. Let me paint a picture for you on Thanksgiving Day, okay? For all of you out there, just picture this: the fire's going. You just got done your Thanksgiving meal. Whether you like the turkey or not, it's irrelevant. I'm a big turkey guy. Not everyone knows. It's fine. You have a nice, lovely meal, maybe some stuffing, some bread, some gravy, some mashed potatoes. You're sitting down on the couch. Everyone else is kind of winding down. It's like 3:30, 4 p.m. Sun's starting to go down. And you throw on these 2 sultry voices right here and take a little Thanksgiving nap. Are you kidding me? I might do that.
I mean, honestly, I could do that. But I love the timing of it all. 3:30, 4 o'clock after eating dinner. It's the best.
You don't have Thanksgiving dinner, quote unquote, is always early.
I think Christmas dinner is I guess
you're
Thanksgiving
wrong.
Is definitely earlier. Yeah, you're right.
So you're giggling at me, but think about
3:30 is insane.
Well, no, because the 4:30 window for the football game is always when I'm like finishing up eating, and then you watch the 4:30 game and take a nap. You're wrong. You got your timing wrong.
I think I have protested early eating, so now I think our family does like 5-ish.
You're the reason that they changed the time to eat.
Probably. Yeah.
That's embarrassing.
You know me, I can make a stink better than anyone else.
Yeah, it's really fucking annoying. But again, not here to talk about that stuff. We're here to talk about RHOSLC and great season. Bronwyn and Mary are arguably stealing the show, which is not something I would have predicted, especially Mary and a newbie. Like, that's shocking because you would think that Lisa Barlow, maybe Heather Gay, Meredith Marks, I never expect to take the center stage, but also Angie K. So our 3 top tier wives this season are Angie K, Mary Cosby, and Bronwyn.
I don't agree with Angie K at all. Every single episode, I find myself wondering more and more why she's in the middle. She's not doing she had the touching scene in this episode where she's talking to her dad. She kind of stands, obviously the climax of that that Audrey Hepburn dinner is her and Meredith getting into it for sure. I still don't think that she deserves center snowflake. I just don't understand it. I don't see it.
I think you're blinded of that. That's blinding your view of the whole. I'm not saying she's numero uno, but she is top 3 because who else is really giving you something? Meredith it's the same old song and dance. It's getting tired already. Lisa she's lost right now. It's interesting to see, and she's still in her own little Lisa world, which is fine. But I do feel like the 3 that are giving me the most consistent and causing the most shit and also backing it up would be Bronwyn. Probably yeah, you know what? I'll do it. I'll be that guy. Bronwyn's my number 1 this season. Mary number 3, and I'm going Angie number 2. Honestly, because think about like everything she's been involved with. Does she land every time? No, but she's involved with everything, and she's trying, and she's not an asshole. So like those are all reasons that I could root for. That's my
yeah. I get where you're coming from. Oddly enough, the most enjoyable person on this show right now is Brittany. She's unreal.
Delightful. Yeah, but I can't rank her top. She's not not even a housewife, but she is delightful.
No, yeah, all right, yeah, all right. I could see a case being made for Angie being in the top 3, not number 2.
That's all I ask.
Put it. Yeah, we'll just see how it plays out.
I love how like disgusted you. I could see top 3, not 2. Well, that just means she's 3. Then it's not that far of a leap. All right.
Yeah, but it's like if somebody says, yeah, I'm in the top 5. It's like, yeah, you're in the top 5. That means you're 5. If you're going to say you're in the top 5, that's number 5. So I would put her at number 3, maybe.
If I'm ever in the top 5 of anything and I'm not 5, I'm going to start saying top 5 just to throw that off. Be like, I'm in the top 5. Oh, what are you 5? No, I'm 2.
I think that's a good approach for sure.
I actually do too. It's like humble. That's humble. It makes me seem humble. Yeah. And sometimes I need to be knocked down a peg, as you know. But anyway,
what about pegging?
Well, that's a different podcast for a different day. But before we jump into this first part but before we dive in, just a heads up, this will be a 2-part episode because we have a whole lot to discuss. That's what RHOSLC is doing this season. They are giving us a lot of content, episode to episode. We want to make sure we cover it all. And because this is a travel week, it's Thanksgiving, we'll be bopping around. We want to make sure you have enough to listen to. So we're going to spread this out into a good old-fashioned 2-parter. What do you say about that, Shoots?
I love it.
Well, let's jump right in. We can't waste any time. My handy-dandy notebook.
I love how many people call out that you need an electronic journal, as if that's...
I've reached out to an electronic journal company, and they actually responded and said we had to contact their social media team, and then I didn't follow up.
Okay.
That was 6 months ago.
That was a good time as any.
Maybe that's my fault. I don't know. Why don't you get off my back, Mom? But let's get into this week's episode. We've rambled long enough. We start out with a little voiceover scene of Mary as she's setting up for an Audrey Hepburn party, a little breakfast at Tiffany's kind of vibe. And the next scene real quick is just Angie and Electra. And this is only important because it carries into that scene we see later with her dad, where she is, quote unquote, a helicopter parent, according to her daughter. I don't know if she knows what a helicopter parent is or not. I'm not sure if she is a helicopter parent or not, but this also just sounded like a teenager. Like, oh, Mom, you care so much. Like, get off my back.
That's all it was. I honestly, as they were going through the reasons for her being a helicopter parent, it didn't seem like she was.
Look, that's just an attentive parent.
She's just like trying to find out what's going on in your life. Like, yeah, I guess, why do you lock the door? What's going on over here? Like, she was just pointing things out in the store too. I'm like, that's not a helicopter parent.
No,
we don't know the ins and outs of their relationship. She very well could be a helicopter parent. I could easily see that. But this was very much just a teenager saying, Mom, back off.
Yeah, get off my back, Mom. Yeah. It's like, oh, what do you love me or something? Gross. But I did, like I said, I wanted to point it out because it does come into play later. But we get to go to Kimosabi, which I wasn't expecting. I thought that was in Park City. Are they in Park City? How far is Park City from where they live?
Dude, I have no idea.
Because that's where Kyle and them went to get the hats. That's where all that.
No, they went to Aspen.
Off. That was Aspen. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's where.
Yeah, there's one in Aspen. Yeah, there's one in Aspen. There's one in Vail. There's another one that I know of. I think in like Northern California somewhere. So I'm not surprised that there's one in Salt Lake City or.
Oh, it's Kimosabi plural. I thought it. Well, see, that takes away. It's a chain.
Kimosabis doesn't roll off.
Kimosabis plural. It's not the same. Yeah, but you know what? I didn't think it. That actually flows. I like Kimosabi.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that sounds more like a sushi restaurant than
It
Kimo-san.
does. Yeah.
And that's what Heather thought. So she's ready to have some sushi, and it turns out they're going hat and turquoise jewelry shopping.
Yeah.
And they're going over the Bronwyn thing again. Lisa's telling Heather that she got a different story from Bronwyn. She's talking about the hot tub phone call. She's saying that she was livid, and Heather tries to like lawyer the situation. And we see her kind of spin how it actually went down. And that's what's getting frustrating about Heather this season. And we see it a lot more later. And why I like Bronwyn so much is because of how she calls things out directly.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of experiences, we see they let people get away with certain things like, oh, that's just Lisa being Lisa. That's just Heather being Heather. Bronwyn doesn't put up with it. So I do appreciate that part of it. But watching Heather try to like spin this whole thing, it's like, well, we watched the scene with you in Bronwyn 1. 2, you weren't in Palm Springs. So you don't know how the hot tub scene went down. And Heather, of all people, should know that when you get a story from Lisa Barlow, it's going to be zhuzhed up a little bit to make Lisa Barlow look good. So it gets frustrating watching these scenes with Heather because I like Heather and I want to like Heather. But Heather's having a tough go this season and she's not performing well. And she's getting into some of the tropes that we've seen her do in the past couple of years when she gets in these ruts. And we saw it last year. We definitely saw it with Jen Shaw frequently. And it's tough to root for her because you're like, it's so obvious what she's trying to do. Like she's trying to play the game. She's trying to spin narratives a different way, trying to point fingers and deflect. But it's so clumsy that it's just sloppy and boring to watch.
Yeah. And I think that if you're going to go the route of not going on a cast trip, you can't then turn around and say that you weren't invited. That was your own doing. We all know that was your own doing. You left Bronwyn's house saying, I don't feel comfortable going on this trip. I'm not going to go because you're just forcing me to go and you're forcing an apology out of me or whatever this is. I don't want to go on this trip. You can't turn around and say, well, now I wasn't invited, so like I didn't feel welcome. It's like, no, you did that. You made your bed. You need to lay in it. You need to own it and say, yeah, I didn't feel comfortable going on that cast trip. Fuck it. We know what happens if you don't go on a cast trip. You sort of take a back seat to the rest of the cast because you're not involved. And like she still was involved in the drama because Lisa brought her into it, of course, and Bronwyn's still talking about it. But you weren't there to defend yourself. You weren't there to further the storyline. You can't now force yourself back in by making things up. It's not how that works. And it's coming off like Heather is jealous of Bronwyn. That's really what it comes down to for me. I can't see that scene. I can't see all of the scenes that she's talking about Bronwyn in it and not come away from it thinking, oh, Bronwyn's just talking about, or Heather's just talking about Bronwyn. No, it seems like you're really jealous of her, whether it's her being close to Lisa and you're trying to drive a wedge in there, whether it's her being fucking rich and you not, and having a rich husband. I don't know exactly what it is, but every time that she talks about it, it doesn't seem like it's just Heather standing up for herself. It seems like she's got some sort of ulterior motive that is surrounded by jealousy.
There's like a chip on her shoulder regarding it. And it doesn't make a lot of sense because you don't really know Bronwyn. And we've seen newbies come in and they don't vibe with people like Angie K and Meredith last year. Like we've seen it. But this feels different. There's like an air of stank to it all the time. And I'm like, how did she hurt you? Did she kick your dog or something? Like, what's going on? And I have a bigger theory about it later.
You think is it Monica centric?
I think that's the easiest way to scapegoat it.
I hate that though.
I do too. It's
bullshit. Oh like we all know what you're doing there when you're talking about how it's hard for people to come in, and she does this a little bit later in the Audrey Hepburn party, but this is like the foundation of her argument against Bronwyn. I don't like new people coming into this group. I need to kind of rough them up and figure out where they are. And like, I don't like the way that you're going about it. We know what you're doing. You're trying to make it seem like you have your guard up because of what Monica did last year. Bronwyn's not Monica. We know she's not. No. You can tell immediately. You had a conversation with her in Milwaukee. You just had some weird chip on your shoulder about her. And nobody believes that. Nobody's sitting there saying, yeah, you need to be defensive of new people coming into the group. Monica's a one-off. We know what happened last year. We all watched it. You got through that and you triumphed. You could have used that momentum to continue further and be in that top tier housewife for this show that's doing so well. And instead, you're just stuck on this old shit. And it's just going back to the old Heather tropes that none of us liked.
Yeah, I think it's like it's the easiest way to defend her behavior is by using last year. And I don't think that it's valid. I'm with you. I think it's a different scenario.
Yeah.
But you have two people that spin things. So Lisa at the same time is like, it was either like, I'm either against you or I'm against Bronwyn. Like that's where Bronwyn saw it. It's like Bronwyn was asking you to hear her side.
Yep.
She didn't tell you to pick a side. She said, you listen to Heather You won't listen to me. That's what led to the rift in the hot tub, not anything else. It was that simple. She even laid it out for you, like black and white. Like, just say I'm not two-faced. That's all she needed from you. You couldn't do it. So you're getting two people spin this narrative of what's actually happening, which is very different than what we're watching, at least for me. But we'll talk about it more later, because now we get Bronwyn and Grumpy Todd. And Todd continues to just plummet in my book. I'm sure we'll get some people that still defend his behavior because it's a different generation, which is the biggest crock of shit defense.
Right.
I hate that defense. Just because you're old doesn't mean you can't be better. But whatever. They're going over the Palm Springs trip, and the way that he talks to her once again is so belittling, so demeaning. But what's interesting is in the scene, it's different than what we get in the confessional. But we're hearing him say, like, you ruined a perfectly nice afternoon. It's like, did she ruin the afternoon, Todd? Did she ruin the afternoon, or did Lisa call somebody that she's not cool with in the hot tub and cause a stir? And you're on a TV show. Like, that's the biggest thing here. And when people tried to defend Todd in the comments, where they're like, that's just a different generation, like, you don't know serious businessmen. It's a reality TV show. Okay, so even if he gave this, quote unquote, gave this opportunity to Bronwyn, like, let her do it, which is also horseshit, like, that he gets to say what she can and cannot do. But even let's say that's the case. For her to perform and do her job well, she has to mix it up. She has to get involved. You can't go on a cast trip where somebody's challenging you on your trip and not check them. That would be a big misstep for Bronwyn in the housewives realm. So she's doing her job. And it's really difficult to watch her do her job, do it very well, by the way. And the one person that she needs approval from more than anybody else in the world, she even says that. She goes, Todd's approval means so much. Actually, Todd's approval means everything to me. Like, that's some heavy shit. That's some real shit. So she's battling between performing well on TV, playing the game the right way. What she did in Palm Springs was probably a 6 out of 10 on the housewife scale. That wasn't that deep. But Todd treats it like the end of the world and then acts like it's all her fault for ruining this trip. Again, Todd, you invited a bunch of reality TV stars to your anniversary trip. Okay? Your wife is involved in this show. She's trying to do her job. You are actively trying to make her feel bad about it. But what I appreciate with Bronwyn is she goes to confessionals and will comment on that part of her relationship. And she'll challenge Todd in the confessional to the point where I'm like, oof, he's not going to like it when he sees that. But good for you for standing up and speaking out, because I hate watching it. I really don't like watching Todd anymore. I think he's an asshole.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any space for Todd left on this show, just because we've talked about it before. He doesn't know what this show is. He never knew what this show was. He's never seen an episode of Housewives before. And like you said, that's a 6 out of 10 on the scale of housewife arguments. That wasn't that bad. I do like that we got another little glimpse at him swimming around, kicking his little feet on a float.
His little doggy paddle.
While he's talking about her yelling. She wasn't even yelling. She did say something at the end of it that he probably didn't really like. And look, deep down, I understand what he's saying. This is not a real life problem, though. This is not something that just happened at a fucking dinner party or an anniversary party that you threw and there were no cameras around. If this happened at a normal party, sure, I get it. I understand why you're saying this is fucked up. Like, you can't do this in the middle of a party. It's fucking embarrassing. Have that conversation off camera. Do not have that conversation on camera, because all we're seeing is you belittling your wife. If you did this off camera and you did it in a kinder way, that you get to say, hey, I don't know what the fuck we signed up for, but this is not what I thought it was at all, because I didn't do any research. And I thought that we were just going to have fun. This wasn't fun. This was awful. I didn't want to be any part of that. Okay, see yourself out. Go ahead, do your thing, go on business trips, stay off camera, because we don't want to watch this anymore. It's more and more apparent that I get what your relationship is, and I understand it. And we see Bronwyn talk about his approval and how it means everything. I get it. I understand all of that. But watching you do this on camera, it doesn't make us feel good. It makes us feel like you're a piece of shit. And you might not be a piece of shit. You might be this old businessman that's very stern and going after it and whatever. Have that conversation in private, because you do that on camera. It's embarrassing for Bronwyn. All of us are sitting there judging your relationship, judging your marriage, and it's not good. And it's more ammo for the rest of the women that down the line and at the reunion can use that and say, are you sure that this is a really good marriage for you? It might be. That might just be your dynamic. But the more that you put it on camera, the worse it's going to be for Bronwyn. So you do need to have that in your mind while you're talking to her. And he just doesn't. He has no fucking clue how any of this works. And I don't think, quite frankly, I just don't think he gives a shit. I really don't. I think he's completely over it. Whatever. Go away. Just let Bronwyn do her thing. Let it be her project. Let it be her job, her thing that she wants to do to have a little bit of fun and mix it up. Go ahead. Just stay off camera. We don't need to see it anymore.
Yeah, and I think the most telling thing to your point of saying maybe that's their dynamic, that's their relationship, whatever. Again, not an excuse to talk to her the way that he does, but my challenge to that would be these confessionals where she says, you know, Todd doesn't want me to express my emotions publicly. And if we're going to get into it, that's privately as well. She's starting to open up and she's starting to say things against their relationship, which in the long run, yeah, I mean, that's not going to be great for her on the show because people are going to be able to grab that and say, well, you're saying you're not a gold digger, but why you're in this relationship or whatever they're going to point at. But I do appreciate the vulnerability and just saying flat out, because what we're watching, you and I called it the first time. You called it at the lunch that they had way back. You didn't like how he talked to her. Fast forward a week later, I hated how he talked to her. Fast forward to this week, and it's just getting worse and worse. And then hearing her speak out, I'm like, I think there's more holes in this relationship. And I don't think it's money centric. You know, like people want to say gold digger. They want to say that she got into it for certain reasons, whatever. I'm going to take that part out of it entirely.
Sure.
And say maybe they do have a real connection. Even if they do, there seems to be some part of her. I don't know if it's the show bringing it out of her. I don't know if she had this loaded, ready to go going into the season. Like, you know what? I'm going to talk about my marriage. I'm not sure what her route was. What I do know is we're watching her start to dissect her own marriage, which is interesting. And it is interesting to see. And that's even more frustrating watching how these scenes are handled by Todd, because it's not like Bronwyn's not aware. Right. She is feeling the same things that we're seeing. And that sucks even more because it's not like she's glossed over like, oh, whatever, that's just Todd. She's like, no, this sucks. And I hate when he does that. So I think we're going to watch it play out more and more. And I think that we do have a housewife in Bronwyn that's going to be vocal about it, which I appreciate.
I just hope Todd can tone it down for our sake.
Just settle down. Like, don't end a scene and say cowboy up. Like, what the fuck does that mean to you, Todd? You wear cat sweaters. You have never worked a hard day's labor in your life, and you're gonna say cowboy up. Like, go trade a stock and shut up. Okay, go back to Wall Street.
Took a shot at stock traders.
Yeah, go back to Wall Street, put on a vest or something, and like
they don't work hard. They just sit there and look at a computer.
I'm not saying they don't work hard. I'm saying if you're going to say quote unquote cowboy up, that implies some kind of hard manual labor, and I don't think Todd's ever lifted a brick. Like
Steele as a native Texan is very offended by this. Don't you dare say cowboy up.
Cowboy up. Todd of all people is going to cowboy up. He probably owns one of those stupid Kimosabi cowboy hats. And he's like, this is my cowboy hat.
Yeah, probably.
These are my $10,000 boots that I got as a gift for trading some big stocks. I traded big oil money and they gave me these cool boots.
I'm actually good friends with Kevin Costner, and he gave me these boots for straight from the city.
Yeah, I was on a set of Yellowstone one day and I wore my boots, and me and Costner. What? I wish that was Todd's voice, but we jump back to Lisa and Heather. I need to live in the world that Lisa lives in. It must be so comforting and simple, because the fact that she can take what her conversation was with Bronwyn at the end of that trip and say, I feel like we left on a good note. I'm like, yeah, where were you? Where were you in this conversation that you thought that went well? You got stuck in coach, whether that was a choice or not. You were livid at the end of the trip. Bronwyn was clearly unhappy with you because you couldn't, just because you, Lisa, said, can we hug it out? And Bronwyn gave you a half-assed hug, does not mean you're cool, because I did not see that. What we actually saw from a confessional at the end of that was Bronwyn going, Lisa is two-faced. I don't think I can trust this person. But in Lisa's brain, she's like, we hugged. We're friends again. Everything's fine, Heather. I think that we're going to make it. I need that kind of delusion in my life because I think things would be simpler for me.
We do know that the Lisa Barlow brand of delusion is unlike anything else that we've seen.
It's unmatched.
It is so funny. And it is a very, very obvious thing during all of these shows when conversations end at a hug. There's always one person that says, oh, we're good. We hugged at the end of that. And the other person goes to the confessional and says, yeah, no, we didn't solve shit. I just wanted to make her stop talking, so I gave her a hug. That's typically what happens. Everybody is on one end or the other of that pretty much throughout their entire Housewives career. But her level of delusion is so fucking funny to me because it gets to the point where now she's saying Bronwyn didn't want me to sit there and talk for Heather. That's what she didn't. Or no, she said that she did want her to sit there and talk for Heather. She wanted me to sit there and talk for Heather and say what she's feeling. That is what Bronwyn didn't want. She
Correct.
didn't want you to do that. That's what you were doing. And she said, stop doing that. So she comes back from that, one, thinking that they're in a better place because they hugged at the end of the conversation. And two, thinking she did want her to talk for Heather. She didn't. She wanted you to talk for Lisa. Talk for Lisa and say, hey, I support both of you. I don't really want to be in the middle of this, but I'm going to hear you both out and try to figure out what's going on, and I'll be able to facilitate it. Lisa's never going to be able to do that. She always picks sides, even if it's unconscious. It's just so funny to me. I love it so much when she comes out of these conversations thinking either she won or everything's good. And it could be the complete opposite, and she will never admit it. It's incredible.
Yeah, no, it's fun to watch. I'm not saying it's not entertaining TV. It's just it's so interesting. I'm like, how is that what you got from this? But this is what I was talking about earlier with Heather. I had this epiphany of, oh, that's what this whole thing's about, because she brings up, I'm not gonna let someone come into this foxhole friendship after what we went through. I was like, oh, you're threatened by Bronwyn.
Yep.
That's what this is all coming from. This has nothing to do with Monica. It has nothing to do with last season. It has to do with the fact that you had a good year last year. You had a great finish. You had receipts, proof, timeline, screenshots. You had that great line, like you were riding on cloud 9. Everyone was rooting for you. You come into this season, and out of nowhere, there's this newcomer that comes in very comfortable. It goes well. People are responding to her. She's wealthy beyond anyone else on this show. She flies private jets, $20,000 a night houses. Like, she's the shit.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that and you go, well, shit, I'm not the top tier housewife anymore. I got to go up against this. And that's what sucks, is because if Heather just stayed the course and continued to just be Heather, not get into this tit for tat with Bronwyn, she'd probably be fine. And she'd probably still be close to the top. But instead, she quote unquote doesn't want people to come into this friend group because of last year. It's like, no, you're threatened by a new housewife because she's performing well. You're not responding well to it, but you have the easiest cop out in the world in, well, remember what happened last year? Like, I'm not letting that happen to my friends anymore because we're too close now. It's like, this is bullshit, because you know these friendships can be rocky. You know how it goes with this whole group. You say the wrong thing about Lisa, Meredith, Whitney. It might not even be the wrong thing. They just all interpret things so differently because they're all just bizarre people. You're always walking on eggshells because you're going to say the wrong thing eventually. So I don't believe that. What I do believe is you are threatened. That's it.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense to me too. And look, nobody made Heather the bouncer of this friend group. Everybody else seems to be getting along with Bronwyn in one way or another. Like, yeah, there's trials and tribulations for any new person coming into any of these shows, especially when it's an OG dominated show like this. I mean, if you look through the cast, there's so many people here. Obviously, Jen Shaw's no longer there, but there's so many people on this show that have been together for 5 years, filming this, going through everything, going through Jen Shaw, going to prison, going through Monica. So yeah, that makes all sense to me, but nobody made you the bouncer of this group. If other people are assimilating and trying to figure it out, they're grown-ups. They can figure it out and be friends with who they want to be friends with. You're not the best person to sit there and be the bouncer of the group. And I just wish that somebody, if Heather had somebody on her side that could just get in her ear and say, look, Heather, you're great when you're just Heather. You have higher aspirations for yourself that you just don't need. You don't need to establish yourself as the HBIC. You don't need to be in that top tier. You can just be Heather and everybody's going to enjoy it. You can be goofy. You can be funny. You can just have a couple of one-off lines, start some shit here and there, but you don't need to manufacture all of this every single week. And that's your downfall all the time. Some housewives can do it. Some can't. But we can appreciate you for who you are when you have those good moments. She had a good stretch last year. There was like 6 or 7 straight episodes where she wasn't doing any of that, and she was delightful to watch after that 3rd season, which was awful for her. So she can turn it around. I just need somebody to get in her ear and say, hey, Heather, don't try to reach for the stars here. Just be yourself and just hang out in the middle somewhere, and you'll be great. Everybody's going to love you, and you're going to be on this show for a long time. You do not need to outperform. You just need to be yourself, and you'll be fine.
And that's such a better place to be as a housewife, right? Like, there's a lot of housewives that don't have that option. They have to vie for a top spot and bring some kind of drama or show that they can hang with the drama or start some shit like left and right. There are a few that don't have to. If you look across the board, it's like a Heather Dubrow. She tried to get mixed up in things this year. It went south for her really quickly rather than just stick to the script and be Heather Dubrow. Turn your nose up at people and say you don't have time for it. Heather's in that same realm of you can just do you and people like you for you.
Yeah.
And they're not ranking you against the other housewives, whereas we would have the other ones and go, oh, she's performing better than so-and-so. You have this unique opportunity to just be you. And when you are just you, you're your best. When you try to get involved too much, you step on your own feet and it never goes well. And that's what's confusing. And I agree. I wish that but there's not. There's not one person on this cast that is that just like settling voice of reason that could tell Heather that. And that sucks because, yeah, when she tries to do too much, it does not work. When she's just Heather, it always works. And that's all we want because we love when Heather's just Heather. We just want Heather to be Heather. Just be you.
Maybe it's our fault. Look, we don't do we used to do power rankings every week for these shows. Maybe it's our fault because we were doing power rankings over and over, and maybe she heard that and she's like, I need to do better to get on the Brown Bros power rankings. She also has the Todd cowboy voice. She realized she needed the cowboy up. But yeah, maybe it's our fault. We don't do it anymore, Heather. It's okay. I mean, unless the questions come through.
It's a nice sentiment that, I don't think that's what happened. But I like to think that. But let's keep going. We get to this very touching scene between Angie K and her dad. He comes over for dinner and she just reminisces, which we've heard before, about the backstory. Her dad more or less raised 7 children on his own. Her mom passed away when she was 8 due to what sounds like alcoholism, or at least that was a contributing factor to it. And with everything we've seen from, drinking problems over the past year, I thought that this was a really cool scene because you're watching the effects that it has on somebody.
Yeah.
While also that person is trying to come to terms with the fact that her mom wasn't intentionally doing this. Like she had a problem. She had alcoholism. She was trying to deal with it. It's an illness. And she was doing what she could. But at the same time, it doesn't mean the damage is any less. So she's in this weird middle ground where it's like, I want to forgive my mom. I want to say that everything's okay and I can move on from this. But at the same time, I'm still hurt. And that's okay for her to still be hurt. It's okay that she's still mad at her mom. And she may never get there. Hopefully she does for her own sake. But I just think that these scenes are so important to humanize alcoholism, to humanize substance abuse, because for whatever reason, it has been a sticking point across all shows for the past year or two, which I'm okay with a lot of the time because it draws attention to it, because it raises awareness, it erases the stigma that we realize all of these people deal with this. And everyone, if you look around, deals with this shit. So to see this from this standpoint and this vantage point of somebody that was affected by it, and then thinking back to my, I me, I always relate to these kinds of things, and like seeing the daughter and the fallback from that, knowing my position and where I'm at with my daughters now is so amazing. So this really resonated with me. And I'm just glad that people talk about this stuff. And I'm glad that Angie talked about it the way that she did, where there was hurt, there was pain, there was sorrow, but at the same time, she's trying to get to a point where it's like, I understand, and I'm trying to feel like I'm okay, and I'm trying to forgive her, but I'm still mad. I'm like, that's amazing. This is what we need. This is what we need when we're going to talk about it. From Karen's standpoint on Potomac, where she's not taking accountability and being an asshole about it. From Shannon's standpoint, where people are trying to victimize her and turn her into the bad guy, even though she's trying to be better. Here's somebody that was affected by it, actually speaking on it and being okay with it and trying to move forward on it, but also admitting that there's hurt there. That just, for me, it was very powerful and touching. And I thought it was a good moment for Angie K as well.
Yeah, it was a really good moment for Angie K. And this is one of those scenes that we talk about. They always hit harder when the show's doing so well. And you could argue right now that Salt Lake is doing better than every other show. And there's some heavy hitters out there right now. And Salt Lake is bringing it week in and week out. And we need these little reprieves from things, especially when they start to add up and we're talking about the same thing, even though it's still enjoyable. It's good to know people on a deeper level. And the fact that she's able to sit there with her dad and talk about all of that, bring it back to a scene that we just saw with her daughter about being a helicopter mom. And just the figuring out of, am I doing too much? Am I overcompensating? Am I trying to be something that my mom wasn't? And it's really affecting my daughter's life. Like, those things are something that everybody goes through. A lot of mothers, I'm sure, go through that. A lot of fathers go through that. It's going to come and rear its ugly head depending on what you've gone through in your life and how you want to be a better mom or a better father for your child. So those are the types of things that we always relish in. Those are the types of things that we always love to see, especially, again, when things are going really well. These are really nice scenes to get to know a housewife on a deeper level, because that's how we end up rooting for these people. Like, yeah, you can always sit there and say, wow, she had a great moment. She had a great reunion. She clapped back so hard. She had a great showing during that cast trip, whatever it might be. But these are the things that bring you in. These are the things that get you invested in these housewives. And that's what we love to see.
Correct. It's the investment, right?
Yep.
That's where you start to root for people. But let's get to the Audrey Hepburn party. And Bronwyn arrives first because this is probably the best way to describe Mary Cosby, I think. She goes, I'm reasonably and appropriately scared of Mary.
Yep.
I feel like if you want to be cool with Mary, which you don't have to be, not everybody wants to be Mary's friend, but if you want to be Mary's friend, there does need to be a level of fear of Mary Cosby.
Has to be.
There has to be for you.
That's the only way to do it.
Yeah, that's the only way she's going to accept your friendship. So I appreciated that. I thought that was really funny. And I thought it was such a bizarre choice for Meredith to wear a toupee. I don't like, when she walked in, I was like, that's disrespectful to Audrey Hepburn and her bangs. That's not what she looked like.
Nope.
It looks like a toupee that maybe she stole from Seth. And it just was a ridiculous look. It was a
ridiculous look. And I do not think, look, I don't know if it was all hair gel too that she started putting it down or if it was the rain outside. It just looked like she had an idea. It's almost like you order something on Amazon and you see somebody else wearing it and you're like, ooh, that's what I'm looking for. You probably type in Audrey Hepburn bangs and you find something that clips in there on Amazon and it looks really great. And then it shows up because you only bought one thing and you didn't try out anything else. And you said, well, it's got to be this then. I don't know what the fuck to do. You put it in and it looks awful, but it plays really well because it's fucking hilarious.
It's really funny. She went on Amazon and somehow got reverted to Temu. And that's she got the
Alibaba.
That's the Alibaba bangs. She got Alibaba bangs. And I'm glad she did because it was so ridiculous. Or you know what it was? It's like if a toddler tries to cut their own hair. Like I want bangs.
Oh yeah,
with like
children's safe scissors.
Exactly.
Across,
That's what it was so comical.
She probably did end up on Alibaba too, because when she typed in A on Safari, I'm sure Alibaba popped up right away because she's on there every single day, seeing if Whitney's stuff is on there.
The autofill.
She
got auto-filled. Yep, that's exactly Alibaba bangs.
Yep.
The Ali bangs. But she's talking
Alibaba bangs.
Alibaba. Oh, yes, that's it. Alibaba bangs. But she's talking to Bronwyn about Todd and the trip and everything. And, Bronwyn's like, yeah, it's hard for me because everyone's gutter sniping and going tit for tat, talking shit. Like, that's the game. And Todd is telling me pretty much you have to figure out how to not do that.
Yeah.
What I liked from this is she goes, we'll see. I'm like, okay, great. So even though he's trying to be a controlling asshole, she's still not being like, okay, I'm going to bend the knee. Like it's a different. Yeah. When we see her with Todd, it's obviously different. Her demeanor is different. But when she's separated from him, she's able to say like, you're not going to tell me what to do. And I appreciate that. And that was like a big step up. Bronwyn continues to climb the ranks in my book, but Mary comes in and, she lets us know with everything going on with Robert Jr., an event for her is like a little bit of an escape. And I do feel like she needs that because what we've seen from, let's just call him RJ, from what you've seen from him thus far. And I think we're going to get further into it later, which we've talked about a lot.
Well, Andy even said, I don't know if you saw this, but Andy said that next week's episode is like one of the more raw and emotional scenes that we've seen from any housewife, and the fact that it's from Mary Cosby, he was saying how appreciative he was. So I think we're in for a big heavy dose, a very heavy scene next week.
Oh God, that's gonna crush me.
Yeah, that's gonna be
because
rough.
I have a feeling I know what it's gonna be about, and I'm not gonna speculate. But yeah, that's gonna be tough to watch. But if it goes how I'm hoping it goes, it could be really powerful for a lot of people.
Could be very uplifting.
Yeah, it could be pretty cool.